You finished the marketing, and now it's time to move on to the next section, which is going to be the management and organization. I'm going to break this up into two videos. This first one should be relatively short. We'll talk about choosing an organizational form. A reminder in this section, a whole lot of this section is going to be about gathering documentation that you're going to need, that most will fit into the appendix. However, don't let that lull you into a sense of complacency. You need to write about each of those documents. One example is your resumes. Okay, they need to go into the appendix, certainly, but you need to tell me enough in the narrative part of management and organization that, really maybe I don't need to go back and read the resume. You're going to tell me about the things on the resume that make you particularly suited for this type of an endeavor. So I do have a couple PowerPoints. These are more just to remind me, what we need to talk about here. So, slideshow from beginning. So you're going to choose an organizational form, and I'm not going to go through this PowerPoint word for word. It's available to you. You can sure take a look at it. Okay, you're going to need to choose one of these organizational forms, maybe another if there are some others out there. Typically it's not going to be a limited liability partnership. Those are oftentimes for accounting firms or maybe attorney firms, those types of things. Well, I'll go through these and kind of talk about each just really briefly, but again, this is available. You're going to tell me then in your narrative why you're choosing this. What are the particular reasons this type of entity is suited for your particular endeavor? So sole proprietorship, remember, that's one owner. So if there's two or more of you, you can't be a sole proprietorship, right? Okay. Keep in mind that of all these entities, only a C corporation pays taxes. All the other entities are passed through. Pass-through has a lot of advantages. C corporations are said to be double taxed because the C corporation itself is taxed when it pays dividends or when it pays, or when people sell the stock later, they have to pay capital gains tax. Okay, so a lot of small enterprises avoid the C corporation. Exceptions in our area are actually farms and ranches because there's some special perks that they can get, basically. So a general partnership might be something that you would consider. Okay, very easy to set up. You don't have to go through a lot of paperwork and whatnot. In theory, you don't have to go through any paperwork, right? I'd sure like to see some if you are going to have a general partnership. And you can read through these. So a limited partnership, that would be you'd have one general partner and the others would be limited partners. That can be fairly popular if you have one person that's obviously going to take charge of the business. It's going to run it on a day-to-day basis. And the other folks are just contributing money. Okay, that's typically what we would use a limited partnership for. Corporations, talk about, you sell stock. Okay. Again, these are double taxed. Oftentimes, because of that, they're avoided with small enterprises. Good way to raise money, though. There are S corporations, and S corporations used to be pretty popular because it's a C corporation. It's the same as a C corporation, except for the tax. An S corporation is a flow-through corporation, just like an LLC or a partnership, meaning that the profits and losses flow through to the owners of that particular S corporation. There's some limitations on S corporations. They can't be for bigger companies. It's limited to the number of shareholders, but for any of your small entities, it would be perfectly appropriate. LLCs, and I say they're fairly new. They've been around for 30, 40 years, but just still up until a decade or so ago, at least according to attorneys, my attorney, they were still kind of being tested. Laws were still being tested, and they've held up. Okay, and so LLCs have been and continue to be very, very popular. Okay, there's less burden than there is for a corporation. Keep in mind that one of the advantages for a limited partnership, limited liability partnership, LLC corporation, one of the big, huge advantages there is the limit to liability. Okay, if you're choosing that type of entity, certainly you're going to want to talk about that in your narrative, because limited liability is a huge thing. Again, you can read through these. I don't need to go through LLPs or typically for other types of entities. So